Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye addressed the National Assembly on this Wednesday morning, laying out the details of the government's budget next year, which is nearly $20 billion greater than this year's.
Now, the president appealed to lawmakers to pass the budget bill before the deadline of December 2nd and also called for bipartisan cooperation to promptly pass other bills related to revitalizing the economy and reforming the government.
For more, we have our presidential office correspondent, Choi You-sun, joining us on the line. So, You-sun, President Park said there's no other choice but to increase the budget despite mounting debt.
Hi guys. Announcing the additional $20 billion today, President Park said her government will set economic revitalization as its utmost priority next year. Now this despite the risks of financial losses and ballooning debt. She said because it may be the final golden time for the Korean economy to save itself from the threat of falling into a long-term slump. The president talked about current challenges both at home and abroad, such as low growth, low inflation, and the weak Japanese yen.
And You-sun, the president during a cabinet meeting Monday called for reforms to public employee pension system to be completed by the year's end. And it was anticipated she would talk about the contested reforms in her speech today. What did she say?
Geun-hye, referring to her three-year economic innovation plan aimed at revamping the economic structure to realize its growth potential, President Park highlighted the urgent need to reform the pension system that has long suffered from an expanding deficit, urging those in public service to accept the burden they may have to shoulder to prevent passing down debt to future generations. The president asked the parliament to cooperate in completing the reforms by the end of this year. Looking into the future, the president talked about her government's efforts to realize her vision of an innovation-led creative economy in converging IT and different sectors to spur growth, to stimulate the job market, and to bolster Korea's global competitiveness. In that respect, the government will increase its support for innovative entrepreneurs, startup, and small to mid-sized firms next year by 17% to total some $8 billion.
And You-sun, President Park also spent some time vowing to bolster the national safety system. Tell us a bit more about that.
The government has earmarked nearly $15 billion for safety next year, an 18% increase from this year. The president said the funds will be used to renovate the country's infrastructure and to improve national safety training and emergency communication networks. And for the first time, welfare budget will exceed 30% of the total budget next year to provide Korea seniors a basic pension and to support low-income households. On national reforms, President Park urged lawmakers to direct their attention to a stack of pending bills aimed at wiping out social corruption and revamping the government structure to strengthen the safety system. And following her address at the National Assembly, President Park met with the leaders of the ruling and opposition parties to once again call for a swift bill's passage. This was Choi You-sun reporting on President Park's budget policy speech at the National Assembly.